Hey guys.
Hey everyone.
It's Antonia Okafor here, and I know my name, I swear I do.
And I'm Nina Prevo. It's good to see you guys for our second live stream.
Yes, we said Monday, and I'm actually pretty proud that we are sticking to it.
Yeah, we actually
you guys know there's so many times I'm like, I'm gonna be doing this. And you guys are like, sure, yeah.
Especially for weekly things, I feel like
yeah.
YouTubers don't always stay true to that.
Yeah, well, we're both skilled in YouTube worldness, right? So we both have our own YouTube channels and done some dabbled in that a little bit. So I think it's fate. God was just like, let's put them together in the same state, and then maybe they'll keep each other accountable.
We'll actually do a live stream.
Yeah,
we're in the same state.
Exactly. So we're gonna get right to it today. Let's see. We are talking about several things, of course, mostly gun related and Second Amendment related, because that's important to us. So again, let me just introduce myself a little bit for those who don't know. I am the CEO and founder of Empowered, which is a gun rights organization for high school and college women. But that basically started because I've always been a big advocate of campus carry, which is concealed carry on college campuses. And I have the audacity to believe that female empowerment and gun ownership go together. So that's me.
And as I said earlier, I'm Nina Prevo, and for those of you who don't know me, which is probably most of you, I am an attorney in Colorado, and I have my own law practice. And I met Antonia recently, and we just decided that I should get involved with Empowered because I've always admired Antonia and the work she does. So I'm the general counsel of Empowered now, and I'm very proud to be here. So on with the show.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so we're going to get right into it. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is, actually, did we decide on that? No, we didn't decide. Did we decide on Missouri?
I thought we were going to talk about this.
Okay, we're going to talk about something else. Sorry. You don't have to wait for the good stuff. This is actually good stuff. But
it's all good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So you guys, if you've been following me for a while, you've probably heard a couple of this stuff that we're about to talk about. I hope so, or otherwise you're really bad follower. But if you haven't, well, then we're going to be talking about the fact that once again, people are really interested in the fact that women are getting involved with not only the shooting sports and hunting, which is both things that they are getting involved into. Actually, most of that is drawn from the fact that a lot of women are getting involved with self-defense in general, but probably most specifically is the fact that women are getting involved with self-defense when it comes to firearm ownership. So there's this article, which there are plenty of articles on this. You guys can go look, that talk about the women storming gun sales and how women are a big factor in gun sales recently. And we're seeing this big trend of women basically taking safety into their own hands. In fact, there was a big study not too long ago about women and guns and firearms ownership in general, and them talking about the fact that over 70% of women who have purchased a firearm in the last 5 to 10 years have been specifically just for self-defense. Like they're going into that they have a gun for self-defense. And for me as a pro-gun woman, and Nina as a pro-gun woman, I think it makes total sense to us, right? That of course that's the next step. Of course, female empowerment, guns, but it's a trend that a lot of people are starting to realize more and more. And I'm sure it's attributed to a lot of factors, but nonetheless, there's people who are, realizing now that it's a thing that is important to them. So, Nina, what do you think about it? What do you think is really driving this big movement with women and guns?
Well, I think it's partially due to the left's more recent attempts to just be brazenly anti-Second Amendment. And not even asking just for gun control anymore, but just really saying the Second Amendment is not valid and that no one should be allowed to own a gun at all. And I also, with that, we have women who are seeing this and saying, oh my gosh, this is my ability to defend myself against predators. This is my ability to defend myself from the government, in kind of my opinion, but also just against anyone who would do me or my home or my children or anything like that harm. I don't have children, but for mothers and stuff like that. So
guns are my kids.
my guns are my kids.
Yes, exactly.
No, but at the heart of it, I think that guns really help women more than any other group in terms of self-defense. And I know that myself, when I was younger, even though I've always been a big libertarian type, I never necessarily thought I'd be someone who would own a gun. But the world is becoming a more and more dangerous place, and women see that. And frankly, as a woman who is a libertarian, I don't want to take any risks not being able to protect myself, especially if the police are going to be handicapped in terms of protecting us in certain ways with sanctuary cities and all that.
Yeah.
So,
and I think actually, and I know a lot of our followers are probably gonna be like, "What? Why bring that up?" First of all, you're probably gonna hear us talk about feminism a lot, so you might as well hear it now. But I think
it's gonna
happen, guys. A part of that, I think, also is because I tell people this, and like the left hates it when I talk about it. It's like, actually, feminism did its job, and that's the fact of that, telling women that they're independent and that they can live on their own, and they don't need a man to help them do stuff. Okay, fine. Well, then the next progression of that is the fact that, well, I don't need a man, right, to protect me physically. I can take that into my own hands, right? And NRA has been pushing that for a while as well. It actually says in this article that they started a $6.5 million advertising campaign that targets millennial women. And then that the National Shooting Sports Foundation is also has found that gun ownership among women has risen 77% since 2005. So
I love hearing that.
Exactly. And it's always funny when I get reporters who will like interview me and certain stuff. And I think the last time I actually spoke to someone was at CPAC, and we were talking about more specifically Black people, Black gun owners, but then as a Black woman, even more specifically that way, of why I think that more Black women or women in general are becoming gun owners. And I always like to be like, well, that's because such and such, right? But of course, no matter what I say, at the end, they always want to spin it that it's us, afraid of Trump. Like, yes, that is
everything comes back to Trump.
Even
it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Like, because that's our life is just focused on Trump. That is even in 2005 when, of course, he's probably a Democrat then, right? Mm-hmm. We weren't even thinking about Trump running for office at all. But they just ignore that because it has to be. It has to be with Trump.
Right.
Always, it has to be with Trump.
It's
so,
true. And you mentioned women of color in particular. And by the way, I really don't like that term, women of color. That's a whole other issue I won't go into right now. But women of color who are protecting themselves, a lot of people who are kind of on the left like to talk about how people of color in general live in lower socioeconomic areas and how it disproportionately affects them, that they have to deal with more crime and all of this stuff. And I think that that's part of the reason why more Black women, Latino women are, getting an iron on their hip, so to speak, yes. Because it's true. We're more disproportionately affected by these high crime areas, and we have to have a way to protect ourselves. Think about how many single mothers of color walk around on streets that are dangerous. They need to be able to protect themselves, and all of these elitist types who want to take away our Second Amendment are really not in touch with the needs of, the more lower economic statuses that some of these people might have. So safety's first and self-defense is first. And that's why women want guns.
Well, the thing is that that's the hypocrisy of it, that they're in touch with Black women in empowerment or even women in empowerment as long as it's with their viewpoint or what they think that empowerment should be like, what they should be advocating for, right? If it goes against the grain or the narrative that they want, then we don't associate. In fact, you're not even Black. Okay, right. You're not even a woman, and if you are, you're traded a vote. Okay, so that's exactly.
And today I have my curly hair out, so there's no dispute that I am mixed because I'm so sick of people on Twitter. People on Twitter just tell me that I'm white, and I'm just.
Is it really?
Yeah, it happens a lot.
I'm like, okay, come on. If you guys are going to make that blanket statement right there, it's always like places that are predominantly. It's always like Oregon and these places like. Or Denver, where it's like, are the Black people there, though? Are you an expert, really?
There's not that many Black people in Denver.
Not.
There's really not.
There's really not. It's kind of funny being here now, and it's being like, yeah, I am Black. I am Black. You've seen that, right?
Don't be surprised, everyone in Colorado.
Exactly. All right, so we're gonna move on to the next thing, which I think is really important. Well, are you ready for it now?
Yeah,
okay.
Sure.
Okay, because I'm like, okay, maybe I'm like really excited about it, and that's why. So many things to talk about it, but she's gonna lead that.
Yeah, so I'm sure that those of you who are listening have heard at least partially about what's going on with Missouri. Missouri has recently proposed a bill that's called the Second Amendment Preservation Act, and this bill is pretty much a nullification bill, or that's what it would have the effect of. And it hasn't been passed yet. It actually is still kind of caught up in committees, so it hasn't even been voted on by the Missouri State Senate. So I should put that asterisk on this. But hopefully it goes through and that other states follow, because it really is a good bill. Essentially what this says is that the state of Missouri cares about the United States Constitution and specifically the Second Amendment, as all states should, but also that they are going to protect the Constitution against enemies, whether they be foreign or domestic, and that includes the federal government. So if the federal government tries to pass laws that restrict the Second Amendment, this is just saying that they will not be enforced in the state of Missouri. And that also any local state officials, they will not be authorized to actually enforce any federal laws that are violating of the Second Amendment. And they list off specific things that would be violations, such as taxes that are too extreme, putting in too many procedural hoops to get a gun, making it too easy to take away a gun. These are all kinds of things that are in there. So they're kind of going in the exact opposite direction of Colorado, where we are, where they're literally trying to make it like that to take your gun away. So, but it's an interesting bill. I actually encourage, for those of you who can bear legalese, to go take a look at the actual bill itself. I have it here so I can tell you the number. It's Senate Bill number 367. And the reason why I recommend the actual language is because it has a bit of a Declaration of Independence vibe to it. It kind of has a bit of an airing of grievances, so to speak, at the beginning.
It's not even Festivus, guys.
Okay. And I love Festivus, okay? It's like the biggest Seinfeld fan ever. But really, I encourage you to read it. And I'm so happy Missouri's doing this. I hope other states follow suit. And I hope it passes. So I don't know if you want to talk about it too.
Yeah, and well, I think it's just funny, like just even reading if you go on the actual website where the bill is showing like where it is right now, if it's which is right now in this Transportation Committee and everything. On the bottom, it has comments, like they just allow public comments, which I guess
oh gosh, I
might as well
see those.
Yeah, they have public comments already on the actual government website. And of course, like if this was Colorado for one, you'd already see all the hate comments, right? Of like, well, I'm so glad I'm in Boulder County and we don't have this ridiculous, right? Things like that. But if you see the actual Missouri legislative bill website in the comments below, it's all very like, thank you, Missouri. Like I've never been prouder of my state ever before, like right now and stuff like that. So it's just like, okay, Missouri people, they love their freedom. And this is not the first time, I don't know if you said this, but this is not the first time they try to pass this bill either. They tried to pass it twice before, even so much so that Time magazine got upset and was like, wrote a whole article on that, saying they're trying to pass this again and they're crying and stuff. So they're probably not crying, but maybe, well, the writer is probably crying about it. So
I bet some of them did.
Exactly. I already know they did. So yeah, that's part of it, is that the Missouri people want this, and it's a reflection of the Missouri people. And that's really how it should always be, is that the state, the more local that you get, the better representative, but the better you represent the people that are there. And that's why we have the Constitution set up the way that it's set up, is so that it is the state entities, even more so it is the county entities or the city entities that are ones making the decisions, because they know the people around them. They live and life around those people, and they know the people that representing because they're close to them. But yeah.
And that's such an important point too, especially, we talked about how I'm a big L libertarian, but the further you get away from the individual, the more tyrannical it's going to be. It just doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter if the person way up at the running the world has good intentions. It's just going to be more tyrannical because you just can't know all of the individuals that you're governing. I would call it ruling at that point. But, the closer to the individual, the better. And so that's why I'm a big states' rights advocate, because if we can at least get it back to the states, that's still closer, because it's much easier, as I'm sure all of you know, to oust a state official or a state government person, where it's like, how hard is it to get rid of your congressman? I mean, I've been trying to get rid of the senators and congressmen in Colorado since like 2012 with no avail. So it's really, it's bring everything back to the states.
Absolutely.
It's important.
Richie of the West asked if this is the mandatory AR-15 bill.
I'm not sure if I've heard of this mandatory AR-15 bill, but that is not contemplated in this language. Not that I've seen. This is more of a preemptive, anything that the federal government passes that does this, we won't enforce. But I don't think that they're pushing AR-15s onto anyone. Although that's one of those things where it's kind of an interesting policy to entertain. I think that Switzerland does something like that, where all, I don't know if it's all adults or all adult men have to learn how to use an AR-15 and have to possess one, something like that, or a similar weapon. But yeah, I'm not familiar with that. You could tweet it to me. Or actually, I'm not even checking my Twitter, so that's not helpful. You could put it in the comments if you're still here. And feel free to ask questions in the comment section for those of you who are watching.
Yeah, and Reginald says, hopefully Georgia joins the constitutional carry states, which we are definitely going to talk about constitutional carry. That is really big, especially since the fact that Texas is supposed to get it this time. I mean, we'll see. I mean, if Kentucky gets it, South Dakota got it, and Oklahoma, I mean, it's time, Texas, but we'll see.
And soon enough, I'm going to be pushing for it here. I know that our government's insane, but I'm going to be pushing for constitutional carry. You heard
it from her first.
In Colorado. So.
I will be there with her. Don't worry about that. But yeah, we're trying to fight this red flag law nonsense here first. And it's, well, that's kind of funny. Where did I put that? Man, I just had the news. I left it. Anyways, basically, it was about Boulder County. Oh yeah,
I found it. Sorry guys.
It was funny getting it this morning, and actually not this morning. And the headline of the whole thing has red flags. If you guys don't know about that, right now in Colorado, they're trying to make it so that family members, someone close to you, can say that this person is a danger to society or to themselves.
Yeah.
And should not have a firearm, and basically completely negating due process and making it very easy for judges to say you can't have a gun for a year at least. So of course, Colorado has the people like Weld County, where the sheriffs are actually saying, well, we're going to make this a sanctuary city then. That's going to be a popular thing with illegal immigration. We're going to have a Second Amendment sanctuary city, or county rather. Right. For those who don't know, Weld County is actually one of the biggest counties in the country. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So it's like, if we're going to have one really red county, at least we had Weld County. So he's getting a lot of flack for that because he's on the right side of history. But of course, Boulder County is really upset about the fact that we have sheriffs who think that they have like this right to, to enforce
the Second Amendment.
Yeah, to enforce these laws that they don't like, because Boulder County was already saying that. I think it was on the county level, or rather the city level. You guys remember with the assault. I'm not using my own language. Obviously, I'm using their language. Assault weapon ban after Parkland. And of course, Boulder County law enforcement officials planning talks, right? They're planning talks because they're very concerned about these sheriffs, like Weld County sheriffs, saying things like they're not going to enforce the law, right? Because it's about guns.
We got to make sure that no one can drive into Boulder from Weld County possessing a gun. I don't know. These people have really gone a little bit bonkers with this
well,
stuff.
they're so hypocritical of what they choose to enforce. And I mean, I remember when the Dallas sheriff said no to having to actually saying yes rather to having a sanctuary city there, to upholding that and allowing that in Dallas. She then then ran against Greg Abbott in the governor race, and she lost. But yeah, this whole fiasco of thinking like, you know what, we don't like this law, even though it's clearly, in the Constitution, we don't like it. And the things that actually the Constitution has, very limited government when it comes to the scope of what the federal government has power over when it comes to immigration. But that's the one you're like, oh, well, we're doing the good thing by saying you can't enforce those things. So I don't know. Yeah.
It's crazy. And to mention Boulder County for a second, after the Las Vegas shooting happened, Boulder County actually implemented a mandatory, I don't know if it was a buyback, but you had to turn in any bump stocks you had. And there were thousands of bump stocks or something in Boulder County. But you know how many people turned in their bump stocks? 0. Yeah, not a single person in Boulder County turned it in. So that's the other thing that's crazy, is that even like the Boulder government thinks that their citizens want all the strict gun control, but the actual people in Boulder, even all of the hippie types, like ultra liberals in Boulder, they're not going to give up their guns. It just does not matter. So our government can try, but I really don't think that it's going to go through in Colorado. Hopefully we can nudge them the other way
in general. But speaking of people who willingly give up their guns after tragedies, sorry, that's too soon.
It's a rough one, but it's true.
It is true. Yeah, it's not. We didn't tell you to give up your guns. Definitely not Americans. New Zealand. Back to that. I know you have a little bit of update of what's been going on. I think the last image I've seen with the update on New Zealand is I just saw a picture of like these police officers with having to carry firearms, right? Because they had to, but putting flowers in their holsters to show. You didn't see that? Okay. Yeah, that's what I just saw that picture and I was just like, roll my eyes. I'm just like, I mean, I have things to do, but yeah. So
aren't the police officers the ones that are supposed to have the guns in their ideal situation? Anyway, sorry, that's crazy to me. But I do want to talk about New Zealand again, just briefly. I know that everyone's talked about it to death, but I really think that the giving up of the guns was it was not only just a physical act or like a government overreach, but it also was very symbolic of where New Zealand is as a culture. And I think it's clear too, and I don't know if you guys watched or saw any of this, it was all over my Twitter feed, but there were people who were wearing the hijab in solidarity, and there were newscasters who put on a hijab in solidarity. I think it was last Friday or something like that. I doubt that they continued doing it, but to me that just shows that, and obviously there's Muslims who wear the hijab and who do it by choice because that is their spiritual belief and they think that it is what is good and right. But there are also women who wear the hijab because they have no other choice, and because if they didn't wear the hijab, they would face criminal liability in some way, shape, or form. So to me, to show solidarity by putting on a hijab is symbolic and goes hand in hand with giving up your weapons, because in giving up your weapons, you're actually giving up your autonomy. So it makes sense to me that you also would give up your autonomy in terms of your clothing. And the New Zealand people seem to have, I mean, obviously tragedies affect people or affect nations so greatly. And I know after 9/11, like no one was the same in America, right? And people were devastated emotionally by that. And our whole government changed because of that. So New Zealand is, they might not have as much immense tragedy happen on their soil that often, and this really affected them. And I can just tell that the New Zealand people are taking this in a way that is so negative and is so just almost submissive, to just say we are powerless to these inanimate objects and to those who would do us evil. And instead of trying to defend ourselves or trying to become stronger, we're going to put like veils over our own heads, and we're going to, I don't know, this is probably really controversial, I'm probably gonna get a lot of flack for this, but I see this all as very symbolic in terms of just giving your liberty away and saying, I'm so concerned about being safe that I don't even want to protect myself, and I'm gonna, like, the idea of putting on a hood to me is almost, and the reason why they kind of have the hijab anyway is because you're almost supposed to be protecting yourself from being raped. Like, that's kind of the whole idea, is like, if men see your hair or if they see anything too provocative, then they won't be able to help themselves. And so to use that as solidarity, to say, I'm going to put on something that shows that if I really reveal who I am, people might not be able to help themselves around me, and I might be facing danger just from expressing myself or being an individual. It's all of this is wrapped up together, and it really breaks my heart. I don't know. I was really sad to see these women don the hijab, and I have other comments too, but I want to open up your commentary on this specific issue before I.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's just, yeah, I mean, I think it's the fact that the narrative again has gone in the way of what like mainstream media wants it to go, to turn it into what they want it to turn into. So even this, I mean, the biggest thing for me is the fact that the gun control aspect of it, of course, absolutely, the fact that that's how they're choosing to don, the fact that they're in solidarity with these people, right? By donning the hijab, which, I mean, that's their thing to do.
And of course, if you want to wear a hijab, you can do it whenever you want.
Yeah, but they are going to make this about that issue for a long time, and they're going to make it now not only because of course they would always want to make it about when a mass shooting happens, as much as possible be a racist thing, right, or a sexist thing. Now they're it's going to bring, I mean, obviously it's not them who's doing that, it was this man who did that. He's the one initially who did this whole thing, and he should have all the blame. Now it will be a religious aspect. I mean, we see that a lot as Christians, right? We get a lot of flack for being Christians, vocal Christians, and being pro-gun. Well, now it's going to be that if you are pro-gun, then they're going to try to put it together that, oh, you must be anti-Muslim too, right? They're going to put they want to put as many things like that together to make it seem that if you're pro-gun, then you're not pro-life, like we were talking about with Beto, right? Like, he's trying to change that with evangelical women in here in the States. But then also that you are racist, right? You hate women, and that you are an Islamophobe. That so they're going to use all of that against us in this coming election. I'm sure they're going to bring that up when it comes to diversity or being inclusive or whatever, what have you. But yeah, it is a reaction that kind of concerns me. I don't know if you saw that Slate wrote this article, which I will give credence to the left of, supposedly they called Slate out on this because it is Slate. Come on, guys. But there are a whole article about, they said that that basically white Australians are to blame for what happened.
Oh God, I did see that headline. Yeah. I didn't know that was Slate. That was one of those that was just like, Slate. Oh my God, I just have to pass. This article's gonna be garbage.
And that's the thing, is that we fall right into their plan, right? Because when we're sharing it and they get likes and clicks and whatever. That's what they want in the first place. But to be honest, if I was a person who thought in the left mentality still, because remember I used to be on the left, my mentality would have been like, well, censor that type of speech because they're causing harm by, like, okay, if you're an intelligent, rational human being, you can understand between someone being absolutely ridiculous and saying that all white Australians, not people from New Zealand, but Australians,
different country entirely,
are to blame for something that happened in New Zealand. And the fact that also Australians are the ones who promoted that big gun ban buyback program. So
yeah, I'm not. They really have to be.
It's a stretch.
Grasping at straws to come up with that.
Absolutely.
I noticed in the chat, Richie of the West is mentioning how it's illegal to possess the manifesto and let's see, and also possessing the video. Yeah, and that goes hand in hand with what I was talking about, right? About how it's not just the gun ban. Like the everything New Zealand is doing is a sign that they are like submitting to their government. They are submitting to the safety and protection of, you know, the authorities, so to speak. And New Zealand already had really strict gun laws anyway. And so now they're clamping down on the censorship. These women are like, oh, wear a hijab just cause. It's like, I don't know. This is, it makes me sad for New Zealand. Because it's so beautiful. It's like Lord of the Rings country. I love the Lord of the Rings. The other thing I wanted to mention about New Zealand is just the reaction of some of the presidential candidates to this. And the fact, I want to talk about Bernie Sanders in particular, because Bernie Sanders, I don't have the tweet right in front of me, but he came out and said something along the lines of like, yeah, see, New Zealand, they've got it. They know what they're doing. Like, why aren't we doing this?
The assault weapons ban?
Yeah.
Right after. Oh yeah. Everyone
He was praising it, and he's like, this is what America should be doing. It's like, okay, first of all, you're running for president of the United States. You realize that when you become president, you have to take an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States, which includes the Second Amendment, unless and until, heaven forbid, Congress tries to actually amend the Constitution to get rid of it. But in my opinion, any presidential candidate who comes out and says that what New Zealand did, wherein within, 6 days, they instituted the ban, that's what our politicians should be doing. It's like, you are unfit to be president because you're not going to uphold the Constitution. So
he's unfit to be president in so many
I know, but it's
so many others.
Yeah, I mean, being an avowed socialist should be enough in and of itself to disqualify anyone from being the president. But you know, what he's saying in that tweet is that I am not going to uphold the Constitution. I have no intention of doing so. And I think that we need to call out politicians when they say stuff like that. Because I was pissed off. Obviously the bartender, I always call AOC the bartender. Obviously she's out praising this, but you know, she's not running for president. She's young and stupid and all of that. Bernie Sanders is like an old man, and he knows what the Constitution says. He should not be praising stuff like this. And I'm pretty sure was there a Democratic candidate that did not praise it? I know Beto did.
How many are there right now? What, 20?
I'm
joking.
20.
At least 20. Like, okay, at least 20 candidates that are like, okay, you could actually be up there when we have the debates, maybe. Right, but the funny thing is that they're gonna have more candidates. I mean, when the debates happen, right? There's all these other candidates that are gonna be running, but including that, I forgot his name, the guy that wants everyone to have $1,000 a month, the basic income guy.
Oh, Andrew Yang.
Yes.
Please, libertarians, stop supporting him, please.
And well, did you hear that? Also, it's not just libertarians. It's actually not just like as if it's the same category. But did you hear it's a lot of alt-right people too? Oh. Like a lot.
You hear that? Libertarians watching, okay?
Wait, do you hear a lot of libertarians that are pro him?
Well, there's a surprising amount of libertarians who are pro UBI, which I just will never understand. And he's a proponent of that. So
universal
it's like,
basic income.
Universal basic income. He's proposed like $1,000 a month for everybody. But to me, that's just deeply Marxist. I just don't understand how any libertarian could support that. But I probably took us way off course with that. We were talking about New Zealand and our politicians, but I just think that and this was something way back in 2012, I recorded a video about how one of the reasons I support Ron Paul is he's the only one who is on the stage actually saying he's going to abide by his oath of office. And I think that we got to hold people accountable for that, because they swear that they'll uphold the Constitution, and most of their policies are just to destroy it. So anyway, I'll get off my soapbox on that.
And the thing about also Bernie Sanders is like, out of all of, if anybody else has a past when it comes to gun control, or rather gun rights, the fact that, I don't know if you guys know that there was a time where Bernie Sanders actually, I think he had an A rating actually, because he was pretty pro-gun, because he was a representative of Vermont. No, senator, right? Yeah. Senator for Vermont. And Vermont is actually pretty pro-gun because of it's Vermont. You know, they need firearms. It wasn't until I think it was either the first big televised debate, when actually they still had the third candidate, which his name is like playing in mind right now, but when they had 3 with Hillary as well, and afterwards they told him that if he didn't give up his pro-gun stance, even for hunting, which he's had for years as a senator in Vermont because he represented the people, crazy, that he wasn't going to get any funding from the big organization. So he gave up that. And of course, people think like because he's a Democrat, or rather, he was an independent at first or whatever, socialist, but decided to be a Democrat.
A lot of socialists are independents.
Yeah, so
it's like the immigration thing. How there's all those cuts of like Democrats saying that they were for border enforcement because illegal immigration was a problem for like the working class. There's all these cuts of them, and now it's like, ooh, like we never said that.
No.
We never said that. I was gonna just pick up on something you said. I do think that's part of the reason too why Coloradans aren't gonna give up our guns. Like obviously I've got my whole government, like I just would never do it anyway, not giving up my guns, but I grew up in a neighborhood where we literally had a bear in our front yard before. Like we have to be able to protect ourselves. You can't mace a bear in the face. And I guess even like my little revolver, it wouldn't do much harm to a bear. Fair enough. But I think that's one of the reasons why it's so scary to hear them wanting to ban bigger kinds of guns, because sometimes it's genuinely just to protect your home, not even from other humans, but just from the world. So I think that those of us who live in more rugged areas and not in the city life probably understand that a little bit better.
Well, the thing is too is that a lot of them will still say, for example, they don't know the difference between a hunting round or like they're trying to ban AR-15s, which are what 223, 5.56, most of the time 5.56, right? And I can't tell you how many times I have to debate someone saying that it's not a high power, like it's not.
It's so obnoxious.
You're lucky enough if you're gonna shoot a deer with that, and that's of course shot placement. Say it with me, guys, shot placement.
And these are people who call magazines clips.
Oh yeah. Stuff. Which I will defend those people because there are also people on our side who also call them clips still. Yeah. You guys need to do better.
Okay. Call magazines. Just so
you
know.
You do better, guys. But yeah, regardless of that, is that there's still a lot of people who just refuse to be ignorant, refuse to be educated, rather they want to be ignorant and firearms. And then they also want to still at the same time make decisions for us regarding the firearms, regarding our rights, our Second Amendment rights, in general. So, it's going to be interesting to see how New Zealand is going to go, because there's a lot of international attention right now with them, especially because of that manifesto. I think that's really why it's such a big, even more so a big deal. I don't think that, yes, obviously that he targeted Muslims is a big deal, versus, again, targeting Christians, which they do all the time, daily. But I do think that manifesto, and also again making people not be able to see that stuff, is now it's like the black market. You just increase the craving, guys. So just
like how many people in New Zealand just instantly got a VPN and just went and found it just immediately because just
because he told them not to.
Yeah, just have your internet think that you're in a different country and then you can see it. So it's like Tim Pool says, like the internet can't be contained. It's out of the bag. Anything you put on the internet's out of the bag. So and that's why the millennial generation is so screwed, because we put our whole lives pretty much on social media.
No, we're not. I mean, even this is gonna show up one day, and I'm gonna be like, delete. No, I was kidding.
You're like, girl, what are you wearing that day?
Yeah. I'm like, that lipstick though.
But that is the last thing that I'll say about New Zealand too. And we're not going to talk about Mueller in terms of the actual thing, but it is related, which is that I'm really glad that the media is just getting discredited right now. Like this whole thing with Russia is just blowing up in their face. And I hope that what's going on with this New Zealand thing also is alarming to people as well, because the media is doing exactly what the shooter wanted them to do, and they don't seem to care. Absolutely. So I hope that the media just destroys itself more than it already has, and I'm kind of glad to see that in process. But that's the only thing I'll mention about Mueller. Yeah, I'm so sick of it on my feed. It's driving me nuts.
So to end off with a really, really happy note, I want you guys to know that I found out, just realized that I will actually be the next AOC because my initials are going to change when I get married in a couple months to Antonia Okafor Cover. So,
oh my gosh, you're gonna be AOC.
So you guys can just, ponder that. Figure out what you're going to do with that. Let me know in the comments how you feel. I don't care at all, but
I won't teach you too bad.
Someone said that I will be the superior AOC. I don't even know what the standard is in that, but
yeah, it's not hard. It's not hard.
Yeah,
basic
thanks,
math
Nicholas.
skills.
I'm not sure if you're congratulating me on the AOC change or getting married. Probably because I'm getting married. But thank you. Yes, I'm getting married, and Nina is getting married as well. We did not plan it.
Yeah,
promise.
I know.
It's just
I don't think our fiancés did either.
But. Yeah, they don't know each other. Yes.
Yes.
So, but yeah, well, thank you guys so much. We'll probably we might probably not going to do it on Monday. We might change it to Sunday just because I'm going to be speaking at Florida State University. So if you guys are going to be in Florida State University area, I think it's Tallahassee. I probably should know that. I'll find out when I fly there. I know you guys are in the seat 6. No, not. Oh wait, I don't think they won. March Madness, guys. Okay, we know about guns. We don't know all about like sports and stuff. That's a little bit too much, right? You can't have both. But I just know from my fiance that I think FSU was in the tournament, but I'm not sure if they still are. Yeah. Anyway, FSU fans, I'll see you next week in Florida, and I'll be talking about female empowerment, feminism, and the Second Amendment. Like I like to.
If you're there.
Yeah. So I hope to see you guys there. And if not, I'll catch you guys on the next live feed with Nina.
Yeah. And the NBA is better than college sports. Sorry.
Oh.
I had to get that in.
It was very important.
Sorry. I love my Nuggets. And
my goodness.
They had been first in the Western Conference. I don't know if that last game that they just lost screwed them with that. Anyway, I don't have to talk about that. You should follow us both on Twitter if you don't already.
Yes, at Antonia_Okafor.
And at Nina Prevo. And we'll see you on the next stream, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in.
See you guys. Bye. Thanks for tuning in.
Love you all. Nice. There are more.